Good morning, dear students of the first year English literature. Today we are going to continue our discussion of Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House. Go to page number 47, the mid section of the page, at the middle section of the page, when Krogstad says to Nora, we have a confrontation again between Krogstad and Nora. He tells her, tell me. Krogstad says, tell me, Mrs. Helmer. And before we go on, this is part of the rising action of the play. And it deals with the revelation of the forgery she committed in the past. Tell me, Mrs. Helmer, can you by any chance remember that or what day your father died? On what day of the month, I mean? Papa died on the 29th of September. This or that is correct. I have a certain date for myself, and as that is so, there is a discrepancy. The word discrepancy means contradiction. Here we have kind of flashback or revelation of past events to let you know about how she came to do this kind of forgery, under what conditions. So discrepancy means contradiction. Taking a paper from his pocket, he takes out a paper from his pocket, which I cannot account for. What discrepancy, what kind of contradiction you have? I don't know. The discrepancy consists, Mrs. Helmer, in the fact that your father signed this bond 3 days after his death. How come that your father signs a paper, or anyone signing a paper after 3 days of his passing away, of his death? How? Someone signs something after his death, this is irrational. Okay? And so this is the source of discrepancy he's talking about. What do you mean? I don't understand. Your father died on the 29th of September. Okay? But look here. Your father dated his signature the 2nd of October, so 3 days after his death, after his departure. It is a discrepancy, isn't it? How come? Nora is silent. She can't say anything at this moment. She is shocked. She committed a mistake. Can you explain it to me? Nora is still silent. It is a remarkable thing, too, that the word 2nd of October, as well as the year, these two words, are not written in your father's handwriting. This is not the handwriting of your father. So there is a mistake relating to the date, okay, 3 days after his death, and another mistake, another crime, which is to forge her father's signature. It is not your father's handwriting, but in one that I think I know, it is Nora's. Well, of course, it can be explained. Your father may have forgotten to date his signature. Maybe there's a possibility that he forgot to sign uh, this paper with the date. Okay, and then later on, he signed it or he wrote the date. And someone else may have dated it haphazard. Haphazard means randomly. يعني اعتباطا. Okay, before they knew of his death. There is no harm in that. It's okay. It all depends on the signature. What is more important is the signature of the name. And that is genuine. That is genuine, unique, حقيقي. I suppose, Mrs. Helmer, it was your father himself who signed his name here? Are you sure of that? After a short pause, throws her head up, just like that, and looks defiantly at him. Before that, she was looking down, and then she defies him, looking him into the eye, directly to his eyes, okay, raising her head. No, it wasn't. It was I that wrote Papa's name. This is a direct confession of the sin she committed in the past, of the crime she did, the forgery crime. That's right, I did that. I wrote the name of my father on behalf of him, and he didn't do that. He died before that. It's confession. So pay attention to this. Are you aware that is a dangerous confession? Do you know that this is very dangerous? In what way? You shall have your money soon. Let me ask you a question. Why did you not send the paper to your father? So we are going to know about the reason she forged his signature. The reason she forged his signature. It was impossible. It was impossible to tell my father or to ask for his help during his illness because, Papa was so ill. If I had asked him for his signature, I should have had to tell him what the money was to be used for what purpose. So she was afraid of telling her father of the real purpose of her borrowing the money. And when he was so ill himself, I couldn't tell him that my husband's life was in danger. At the same time, I couldn't tell him that both are very ill. It was impossible for these reasons. So if I ask you that, why did she forge his or her father's signature? Okay, you mentioned this paragraph, very important. It would have been better for you if you had given up your trip abroad. No, that was impossible. That trip was to save my husband's life. I couldn't give that up. But did it never occur to you that you were committing a fraud on me? A fraud اللي هي عملية نصب تزوير. I couldn't take that into account. I didn't care about that, she means. She means I didn't care about that. I didn't trouble myself about you at all. I couldn't bear you because you put so many heartless difficulties in my way. Although you knew what a dangerous condition my husband was in. Mrs. Helmer, you evidently don't realize clearly what it is that you have been guilty of. It means that this is not only a legal crime, but it is a social crime as well. A crime that would devastate her house, her life as her husband and children. But I can assure you that my one false step, which lost me all my reputation, was nothing more or nothing worse than what you have done. I did the same thing in the past, and so we are equal. We are equal in the same sin or on the same level. Do you ask me to believe that you were brave enough to run a risk to save your wife's life? And here we find a very important quotation by Krugstad, and I think it represents Henrik Ibsen's personal opinion. The law cares nothing about motives. The law cares nothing about motives. Then it must be a very foolish law. So this part of this conversation is dealing with their opinions about the function of law in people's life in that kind of conservative society in the 19th century England or Norway. Then it must be a very foolish law. Foolish or not, it is the law by which you will be judged. If I produce this paper in court, if I show this paper to the judge in court, In the next part of this conversation, we find Nora talking about the socio legal limits or the socio legal restrictions practiced against women at that time. Let's go on. Nora says, I don't believe it. Is a daughter not to be allowed to spare her dying father anxiety and care? Here, the word spare means to prevent from or save from. Isn't it allowed for a girl or a wife or a woman in general, a female, to give him the or to be given the opportunity to prevent her father or to save from her father from death? Is that against the law? Is that against the code of the society? Is a wife not to be allowed to save her husband's life? I don't know much about law, but I am certain that there must be laws permitting such things as that. How you know knowledge? Have you no knowledge of such laws? You who are a lawyer, you must be a very poor lawyer, Mr. Krugestad. Maybe, but matters of business, such a business as you and I have had altogether. Do you think I don't understand that? Very well, do as you please, but let me tell you this. If I lose my position, and this is a direct threat to Nora, this is what he came for, basically. If I lose my position a second time, because he lost it once in the past, if I lose my position a second time, you shall lose yours with me. This is a threat. He shall expose her to the society and to her husband. He bows and goes out through the hall. So this is very important. Uh, let's move to another part of the conversation or the dialogue between the different characters. And we have this conversation between Nora and Helmer. Nora and Helmer. And this is part again of the rising action. This is part of the rising action leading to a climax. Here in this part, Helmer knows about Krugstad's visit to the house. You can find this on page, just wait a minute. Right. On page number 50, the final line at the bottom part of the page, the final line, page number 50, when Helmer says, Nora, I can see from your manner, okay? So, Helmer says, Nora, I can see from your manner that he has been here begging you to say a good word for him, on behalf on him, okay? To urge me to do something maybe. Yes, and you were to appear to do it of your own accord. You were to conceal from me the fact of his having been here. Didn't he beg that of you too? Didn't he ask you to conceal that away from me, not to tell me? And so you committed to mistakes that you let him in, and you agreed to keep this secret from me. Yes, Torval, but Nora, and you would be a party to that sort of thing. You would participate in this crime, this social crime, this immoral crime, to let him in and conceal this from your husband. to have any talk with a man like that and give him any sort of promise, to promise him with anything, and to tell me a lie into the bargain, to lie to me about him? A lie? What lie? Didn't you tell me no one had been here? You told me before that no one was here. Didn't you tell me that? Shakes his finger at her. He shakes at his finger at her. My little songbird must never do that again. A songbird must have a clean beak to chirp with. A clean beak. Okay? Minqar. To chirp with, to chirp is to make short, sharp sounds. To make short, sharp sounds of a bird or by a bird. اللي بنسميها in Arabic, which means in Arabic يزق زق يزق زق زق زقت عليه الطيور. No false notes. Puts his arm round her waist. He puts her arm round his waist. That is so, isn't it? Yes, I am sure it is. Lets her go. He lets her go. We will say no more about it. So, stop at this part. Underline this part. It's over for here. This part highlights that he knows about Kyrgyzstan's visit, and he warns, indeed, he warns his wife, Noura, against doing such thing again. Don't you ever think about doing that again. Let's move to another part, which you can find about a page or two later when Noura and Helmer again. Noura says, "That's nice of you. That's nice of you." Right. On page number 52, Noura says at the bottom of the page number 52, Noura says, "That's nice of you. That's nice of you." Of course, she's talking about something with her husband, Helmer. That is nice of you. Goes to the Christmas tree, a short pause. And pay attention to this. She goes to a Christmas tree. And this Christmas tree, as I told you before in our lectures during our presence in the faculty, that this Christmas tree is symbolic of something, a meaning. That's nice of you. She goes to the tree. How pretty the red flowers look on the tree. But tell me, was it really something very bad that this Kyrgyzstan was guilty of in the past? Did he commit something which is very, very morally and legally sinful or against the code of the society? Helmer, he forged someone's name. So he committed a forgery, which is a social, first and foremost, okay, a social and illegal crime, even immoral crime. Have you any idea what that means? Isn't it possible that he was driven to do it by necessity? She tries to persuade him that he might have done that based on some reasons which he had no chance of avoiding yet. By necessity, yes, or as in so many cases, by imprudence. The word imprudence means indiscretion or recklessness. الطيش عدم التعقل عدم التفكير. I am not so heartless as to condemn a man altogether because of a single false step of that kind. Here we find a kind of contradiction, a kind of irony, because later on, when he discovered that Noura committed the same mistake, he's going to be very, very irritated, and he wouldn't accept that of Noura. considering it a sin that is unforgivable. No, you wouldn't, would you, Torvald? Many a man, means many men, many a man has been able to retrieve his character. To retrieve means to regain or to recover his character, if he has openly confessed his fault and taken his punishment. To confess that he had committed a sin or a mistake, and he would give his reputation to the people so that they can judge him correctly and avoid any kind of social or moral punishment. So, Helmer believes in something and does the opposite at the same time. Punishment, yani she means punishment for fraud. But Krugstad did nothing of that sort. He got himself out of it by cunning a trick. And that's why he has gone under altogether. To go under, it means go under altogether, يعني collapsed, sunk, سقط أخلاقيا طبعا, morally sunk, morally collapsed. But do you think it would? Do you think how a guilty man like that has to lie and play the hypocrite with everyone? It's a moral downfall. Hypocrite with everyone. How he has to wear a mask. So he accuses Krugstad of many crimes: lying, hypocrisy, لو النفاق, and wearing a mask. So he accuses Krugstad of many crimes of lying, of being hypocrite, منافق يعني, and even wearing a mask, a disguise to hide from people, to hide his sin from the people, in the presence of those near and dear to him. And this is a moral downfall from Krugstad. Even before his own wife and children, to lie to his wife and children. This is very, very severe. And about the children, that is the most terrible part of it all, Nora. So Helmer lays great stress on the influence of such crimes, lying, hypocrisy, wearing a mask, the influence of these crimes on the coming generation, the children. How? Because such an atmosphere of lies infects this atmosphere, this, environment of lies, hypocrisy, wearing masks, lying to people. This atmosphere infects and poisons the whole life of a home, and in case a place or an organ or someone who is infected by such a poison, he is supposedly to die or to suffer greatly from that action. Okay, so it's a kind of, here we find a kind of foreshadowing of coming events. Each breath the children take in such a house is full of germs of evil. How harsh is his judgment to judge Nora's activity or the crime. According to him, it's a crime she committed in the past for saving himself, but he doesn't know, of course, how serious, how awful is his crime, to consider that this kind of immoral act, as he considers it, germs of evil. At this moment, she comes nearer him, coming nearer to him. Are you sure of that? My dear, I have often seen it in the course of my life as a lawyer. In the course of my life, it means, that he saw it many times. Almost everyone who has gone to the bad here means wickedness or evil. early in his life has had a deceitful mother. Oh, so according to him, any person who commits a crime is sin against the society or the law or against the religion, okay, must have come from a deceitful mother. So to him, mothers are the source of either hypocrisy, lies, deceit, crimes on one hand, or on the other, good life, moral life, okay, a life full of truthfulness. So the norm here depends on the mother herself. Why do you only say mother? Why not the father? It seems most commonly to be the mother influence, the mother's influence. Though naturally a bad father's influence would have the same result. Every lawyer is familiar with this fact, he means. This Krugestad, the father, now has been persistently poisoning his own children with lies and dissimulation. The word dissimulation means deception or falsity. Deception or falsity. That is why I say he has lost all moral character. He has lost all moral character. Moral character, here the word character doesn't mean shakhsiyah. No, it means nature or disposition. He has lost his moral disposition, his moral nature. Holds out his hands to her. That is why my sweet little Nora must promise me not to plead his cause. Not to plead, it means not to defend him, not to implore for him. لا تتوسل من أجله. Don't do that. Don't implore for him or in his behalf. Don't defend him. Give me your hand on it. Promise. Swear on that. Come, what's this? Give me your hand. There now. That's settled. Okay, اتفقنا. I assure you, it would be quite impossible for me to work with him. I literally feel physically ill when I am in the company of such people. He, of course, Helmer becomes ill, becomes morally ill, intellectually ill, psychologically ill. Okay, when he is in the company of such people. Who are those such people? Morally diseased people like her. She herself, according to that, is one of those such people. Such people. Morally diseased people. So the society becomes ill in the company of morally diseased people. That's what he means. The society becomes ill in the company of such people. Nora takes her hand out of his because she begins to lose hope and goes to the opposite side of the Christmas tree. Do you know now what the Christmas tree represents? Do you know the symbol of the Christmas tree? What does it signify or tell us about Nora's intellectual behavior or intellectual uh, uh, intercourse? The Christmas tree is a symbol of hope. رمز للأمل. When she loses hope, she goes to the Christmas tree so that she may find hope. Now Helmer getting up and putting his papers in order. Yes, and I must try and read through some of these before dinner. And I must think about your costume too, the dress she's going to put on during the party of Christmas. And it is just possible I may have something ready in gold paper to hang up on the tree. puts his hand on her head. My precious little singing bird. He goes into his room and shuts the door after him. Look how she feels after this. Nora, after a pause, whispers to herself, of course, no, no, it is not. It is not true. It's impossible. It must be impossible. What is that which is impossible? The nurse opened the door on the left. The little ones, her children, are begging so hard to be allowed to come in to Mama. No, 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 don't let them come in to me. You stay with them, Anne. This is very important. Before that, she welcomed her children and played with them, hide and seek, and many, many different activities in the house. But now she refuses to see them or to let them in. Why? Because she begins to believe in what he had just said to her, that a mother may poison the family by her immoral conduct. By her immoral conduct. This is the impossible thing she thought of moments ago, that she might infect her family and her children with the poison of moral or immoral conduct. No, no. So she starts to be persuaded by Torvald's warnings. Very well, madam. Shuts the door. Nora, pale with terror, she is terrified. Deprave my little children, poison my home. Okay, the word deprave means corrupt my children. Would I by that corrupt my children? Would I by that poison my home? A short pause, then she tosses her head. It's not true. It is not. This is impossible. Couldn't happen. I can't, or it can't possibly be true. So this Act 1, ends with despair or hopelessness. Let's go to Act 2. Act 2. The same page. The same scene. The Christmas tree is in the corner by the piano. Now you know that the Christmas tree presents hope. It is by the piano, stripped of its ornaments. Stripped of its ornaments. يعني نزع عنها تلك الحلي التي كانت تزينها. You know that they put many things on trees uh, to make it, attractive or ornamented in a way or another. And with burn it down candle ends on its disheveled branches. The word disheveled means untended or disorganized branches. So Christmas uh, has come, and the children have played, and Nora's cloak, her attire, her dress, and hat are lying on the sofa. She's alone in the room, walking about uneasily, restlessness, with restlessness. مش مرتاحة. She stops by the sofa and takes up her cloak, then drops the cloak. When she takes up the cloak and then drops it, it represents how nervous, how irritated she is. Someone is coming now, goes to the door and listens. No, it is no one. Of course, no one will come today. Christmas Day. So this day is Christmas Day. اليوم هو يوم عيد الميلاد. Not tomorrow. Not tomorrow either. Of course, by the way, Act 3, the time setting of Act 3 is the day after Christmas Day. Okay? But perhaps open the door and looks out at this much. She opened the door, but perhaps no, nothing in the letterbox. So she is waiting for a letter to arrive and be put inside this letterbox. It's quite empty. The letterbox is quite empty. Comes forward. What rubbish, of course. He can be in earnest about it. He is Krugstad. Krugstad can be in earnest. He can be serious about that. He wouldn't do that. It's impossible. Such a thing wouldn't happen. Couldn't happen. It is impossible. I have 3 little children. I have my life. He can't ruin this. He can't destroy my life. Enter the nurse from the broom on the left, carrying a big cardboard box. At last, I have found the box with the fancy dress. Pay attention to this fancy dress. The fancy dress she is going to put on during the party of the Christmas. Thanks, put it on the table. The nurse doing so. But it is very much in want of mending. And this dress needs repair. I wouldn't like to tear it into 100. I should like to tear this fancy dress, to destroy it into 100,000 pieces. Into 100,000 pieces. Why? The fancy dress, please write this down. The fancy dress symbolizes Nora's disguise. Disguise. D-I-S-G-U-I-S-E. يعني تخفي. This dress symbolizes Nora's disguise. She has put on the mask she has put on throughout her life. Why? To conceal her sadness. So the fancy dress, represents her disguise. رداء تخفي. That she puts on throughout her life to conceal her sadness. To hide her sadness. On the other hand, this fancy dress might stand for the lie. It might stand for or represent, the lie she has kept hidden from Helmer. It may represent her lie, her secret. So write this down, it's very important. So the fancy dress represents either the disguise she has put on throughout her life or the lie she did. So this fancy dress, she should like to tear it into 100,000 pieces. What an idea. It can easily be put in order. Just a little patience. Yes, I will go and get Mrs. Land to come and help me with it. So she expects help from Mrs. Land, not just in mending this dress, but in mending her life, her social life, her familial life. What? Out again in this horrible weather? So there's a horrible weather upcoming. And this is very symbolic. This horrible weather is a symbol of the tension that is coming on. The tensive upcoming events. This horrible weather, which the nurse or the maid expects, is a symbol of the tensive upcoming events, the complicated upcoming events. You will catch cold, madam, and make yourself ill. Well, where's then that might happen? How are the children? The poor little souls are playing with their Christmas presents. But do they ask much about me or for me? You see, they are so accustomed to have their mamma with them. Yes, but nurse, I shall not be able to be so much with them now as I was before. So this is a sign of Nora's acceptance of Helmer's opinion about mothers infecting the social life or the moral life of their children. This is very important. And it is, by the way, part of the rising action. Oh well, young children easily get accustomed to anything. Do you think so? Do you think they would forget their mother if she went away altogether? Do you think they would forget their mother if she went away altogether? So at this moment, she contemplates about leaving the house in near future. This is a kind of foreshadowing, and it's going to happen actually. She thinks about leaving the house for their own sake. She's going to leave for their own sake, but not now, of course, later on. Later on is going to be uh, revealed that she did that actually for her own sake as well. Not just for the children's sake, but for her own sake. Thank you, and see you in next lectures, inshallah.